She felt their eyes, all those executioners. "Welcome, young lady," said Mickey Wright, the premier announcer for Chain Gang All-Stars, the crown jewel in the criminal action penal entertainment program. "Why don't you tell us your name?" His high boots were planted in the turf of the battleground, which was long and green, stroked with cocaine white hash marks like a divergent football field. It was Super Bowl weekend, a fact that Wright was contractually obligated to mention between every match that evening. "You know my name." Chain Gang All-Stars is about an imagined future where convicted wards of state can opt out of a sentence of at least 25 years and decide to, instead of do that prison sentence, participate in gladiatorial death matches. And so the book thinks a lot about the carceral system, the prison system, what we value and how we handle those who do harm. That's a really big part of the whole idea of the book. And it focuses, and within that larger context, it focuses more particularly on a woman named Loretta Thurwar, who has sort of gotten to the end of these games, because if you survive 3 years, you get freed or clemency. Initially, there was like no real intentionality behind her being a woman. As I continued to write the book, it became very important, I think, because a woman in particular occupies a space, when a woman occupies a space of like prestige, there's always like an other side to it, whereas you can be both kind of loved, but also sexualized or demeaned in the same breath, almost always. The example I've been giving sometimes is with comparing Serena Williams to like a LeBron James, where there's a sort of this complicated edge to a woman's dominance in any field. And that felt really important because the carceral system and the prison system is also sexist, is also homophobic, is also sort of full of the same sort of evils that are all over the place in our society, but like really sharply there. So I think that also was a part of why it made sense for the protagonist of this kind of book to be a woman. What is dystopia? Depending on your proximity to privilege, dystopia is now. If you're a child in Palestine and you're getting bombed relentlessly, dystopia is right now. If you're any of us during the years of pandemic when you couldn't go to school, you couldn't go outside, dystopia is right now. And not only because of the fact of disease, but because we live in a system where largely your access to well-being depends on your material wealth. I think that with writing and art in general, I think it's a way for me to engage with the world, and I think there are a lot of pressing issues. So for me, it's like, if the house is on fire, I don't want to talk about like what's in the fridge, you know? And so I think satire, just my way of engaging with, or being in the dystopic mode or satire or whatever way, it's different ways of me like approaching these like really difficult subjects, but making them accessible, not only for the reader, but for myself. Because I don't want to just depress myself every day. Sometimes you have to laugh at how ridiculous it is. Sometimes you have to like almost make a joke that makes the point feel more true. I think it's all part of I think satire and dystopia, just my way of seeing, is making you see what I see, and hopefully getting us to come together and remember that there's a lot of harm that doesn't need to exist right now. There's a lot of suffering that is man-made. My first book was a collection of short stories, and at the beginning of writing Chain Gang, I thought it was gonna be another short story. Obviously, it got way bigger than that. I think that I started doing research on the prison system, and the prison system, not only in America, but just the idea of prison systems at large. And I felt as though within that one story that dealt with prison, I could talk to many different subjects. And it just got bigger and bigger. Once I realized that I wanted to engage with the idea of the prison and think about prisons, it got way too big to fit in a short story. For me, it was scary about working on a novel. I take a long time. It took me about 7 years to write this book. You have to not get bored for 7 years, you know? But because of how insidious, but also, you know, layered the prison system is. No matter how long I was engaged with it, I was continually interested. I didn't know the ending, and I just sort of let the feeling of what I think makes sense push me. But that also causes a ton of issues just in the practice of doing it. It makes it take forever. So I've been playing around with that and seeing if I'm going to change. Maybe my next book I'll be more willing to outline, even though so far I haven't really been doing that, but maybe, I don't know. It feels pretty special. I feel lucky, extremely lucky. I want to come to Brazil specifically because a lot of the readers of both this book and my previous book, the Brazilian readers have come message me on Instagram and said they like the book, or they love the book, or they love the translation. It's almost like I felt called to come, but it feels really, sometimes I feel it's unbelievable actually. I know I'm here, but it feels a little bit like a dream to get to come somewhere like here because of a book. So I don't know, very lucky. I think that there's something probably to learn about why these countries in particular, and these big growing countries have such big prison populations, why punitive measures are seen first. Aggressive, punitive, legal codes and large prison populations are kind of a symptom of something else. And I think by looking at the way the prison system is handled, you can start reverse engineering and seeing what the disease is. Even though chain gang uses a lot of America as a context, it's not just an American problem. But there is no country without a racist history. But countries that have really overt racist histories, countries where different cultures have been forced together by something like slavery, tend to have huge issues with the prison system as well. She noticed her own steadiness and felt a dim love for herself. Strange. She counted herself wretched for so long, but the crowd seemed to appreciate her boldness. They cheered, though their support was edged with a brutal irony. They looked down on this black woman, dressed in the gray jumpsuit of the incarcerated. She was tall and strong, and they looked down on her, the tight coils of black hair on her head. They looked down gleefully. She was about to die. They believed this the way they believed in the sun and the moon and the air they breathed.